Welcome to the third episode in a Legendarium series about the history of werewolves. In Part 3, Fear Sweeps Christendom, we will talk about the great werewolf hunts of the early modern age, which coincided with the witch trials. Medieval Christianity, though fervently devoted to the Christian God and Jesus Christ, included many holdovers from paganism. They included a pervasive belief in magic, using pagan sacred places, the ritual blessing of rivers and fields, and a belief in werewolves. Such beliefs came under attack when Christian reform began to sweep through Europe during the 15th century. The printing press made it possible for church scholars to circulate their works like never before. Orthodox scholars began to define traditional practice and remove old pagan customs. During this time, Christian scholars rewrote the pagan werewolf into a creature of relentless evil. Lycanthropy became regarded as a foul curse, gained through demonic possession or witchcraft. A priest could curse a congregant with lycanthropy as a punishment for heresy. Myriad superstitions emerged about werewolves. Anyone unlucky enough to be born on Christmas Eve might become a werewolf in the eyes of their countrymen. Late medieval people saw babies born around Christmas time as blasphemous, for they detracted from Christ's nativity. Matters grew worse during the Reformation. Europe split between Catholics and Protestants. Wherever one held power, they used the instruments of state to torment their rivals. Both sides accused the other of vile practices, including Satanism, sorcery, and lycanthropy. At this point in history, a widespread belief in werewolves developed in lockstep with that of the witch trials. Both vestiges of the pagan supernatural needed to be hunted by righteous Christians. In France, peasants believed that a person with their eyebrows growing together must be a werewolf. And since werewolves grew hair on the palms of their hands, they had to shave themselves to blend in with humans. This left them with rough hands, which of course many peasants had, and that meant anybody could be accused of being a werewolf. Specifically, anyone who acted in a strange or antisocial manner in particular could be accused of lycanthropy. The first major case involved a Frenchman named Gilles Darnier, who had a unibrow and lived like a hermit outside the city of Dom. When some villagers rescued a girl from a wolf, some believed that they recognized Darnier's unibrow. The authorities arrested him, and he confessed that he transformed by rubbing a magic salve upon his skin, and that he killed and ate several children. The authorities burned him at the stake. In 1541, in the Italian town of Pavia, a mentally ill man began attacking men in the open country. After much trouble, the locals caught the maniac. The prisoner assured his captors that the only difference between himself and a real wolf was that in a true wolf, the hair grew outwards, while in him it stuck inwards. As if to put this assertion to the proof, the Pavia magistrates, themselves cruel and bloodthirsty wolves, chopped off the maniac's arms and legs. The wretch died of his mutilation. This era coincided with the Little Ice Age, which brought drought and famine to a society still deeply dependent upon agriculture. Amid the fear, werewolf sightings became a common occurrence, and a panic surrounding werewolves grew from the witchcraft hysteria. Each year, hundreds of people went to trial on charges of human sacrifice, cannibalism, and licentious behavior. Many involved peasants accusing other peasants, often in a hunt for scapegoats for their poverty, disease, famine, and unexplained disappearances. No matter how hard peasants worked, they wound up with less, and they looked for somebody to blame. One of the most infamous cases to come from Reformation Europe is that of the Bedburg werewolf. Peter Stumpp was born in the village of Eprath in the electorate of Cologne during the mid-16th century. Stumpp is said to have been named after having his left hand cut off. This left only a stump, or in German, Stumpf. Germanic lore, which underpinned laws in the Holy Roman Empire, held that if hunters cut off a werewolf's forepaw, the same injury appeared on the man. This left a one-handed man like Peter Stumpp vulnerable to accusations of lycanthropy. In 1589, the local bishop arrested and accused Peter Stumpp of being an insatiable bloodsucker who gorged upon the flesh of goats, lambs, and sheep, as well as men, women, and children, for over 25 years, in the bishop's words. Facing torture, Stumpp accused to having murdered and eaten 14 children and 2 pregnant women. He even claimed that he removed fetuses from the pregnant woman's wombs and ate their still beating hearts. He further confessed to having relations with his daughter and a succubus sent to him by Satan. During the torture and interrogation, Peter Stumpp claimed that Satan gave him a magical belt that allowed him to transform. Though the bishop ordered a search of the Stumpp house, he of course found no such belt. Nonetheless, Stumpp's execution took place on October 31st, 1589. Many churchmen and aristocrats attended the cruel spectacle. After being strapped to a wooden wheel, officials tore flesh from Peter Stumpp's body with red-hot pincers. Officials broke his limbs with the blunt side of an axe head to prevent him from returning from the grave. Finally, they beheaded him and burned his body. The authorities flayed and strangled his daughter and supposed mistress before burning her along with Stumpp's body. To deter others, the authorities erected Peter Stumpp's torture wheel on a pole with the figure of a wolf upon it, topped by Peter Stumpp's severed head. Why did so many high churchmen take such an interest in the fate of one accused werewolf? Because Peter Stumpp also happened to be a leading Lutheran in his community, and by accusing him of lycanthropy, Catholic officials hoped not only to remove a religious dissident from their community, but to set a terrifying example and besmirch their rivals with the worst possible charges. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.